All right, hi everybody. So today we're going to talk about drawing from life, sort of a still life, and just some tips and tricks to kind of get you started. Because if you've never done it before, it can be kind of tricky. So I'm just going to give you some basic tips, and we'll move on from there. All right, so tips for setup. This is my still life that I set up since we're doing a shoe inspired still life right now. So your ideal setup would be somewhere that you can leave it up for a while, preferably the duration of your project. So if it takes you 2 days, if it takes you 2 weeks, hopefully it's somewhere that you can leave it up and not have things be moved, because that's kind of the whole point, is that things stay exactly where they're supposed to. A blank background and base would be preferred. Obviously, if it goes with your concept to have a complex background, that's a little different, but for our purposes, if you can get a blank background, either putting up some paper or a cloth or something, or like I did, put it on a shelf, that works great too. And then probably the most important would be limiting your light sources. So here I have a lamp set up, so that way I only have one direct light source. It's really easy to see my 5 areas of light, which is really just going to be beneficial for you in the long run, instead of trying to focus on multiple light sources and getting all kinds of different shadows. So that's the reason for that. All right, so the way that I start when setting up a still life and starting to draw on my still life, I try to envision what I want my piece to look like overall. So for us, we're doing a surrealist shoe still life. So we're going to say that this is the setup that I want. Obviously, if you're doing one shoe, that's a little different, things like that. But the way that I start is kind of by blocking out on my paper where I want my, how big I want my objects to be. So on my paper, I'll sketch out just small lines thinking, all right, this is how tall my shoe is going to be. This is how wide it's going to be. It's going to fit within this box here. Okay, and I'll do that the same with the other one. I'm thinking I'll start there, stop there, and then it'll be about this wide. It doesn't need to be super technical. These are just kind of jumping off points for me. So after I've kind of blocked out my areas, that's when I'm going to start to go in and look for my basic shapes. So for shoes, really we're going to be looking for a lot of ovals. We're going to look for those really distinct lines and angles that are in there. So if we look at this shoe on the right here, first thing that catches my eye is this base part here. So we notice that that's an oval, okay? My second thing that I really notice is the negative space. A lot of the times when we start working with still life drawings, we forget about negative space and how that can be used as a tool to help us draw. So when I'm drawing, I'm going to notice that over here, there's this triangle of negative space. So when I start looking for my curves of my shoe here, I know how it's going to play into effect with that negative space down below. Another shape I'm going to look for is where my heel goes, which is going to be a sort of a circle, right? I'm going to start looking at these curves here and here, and then again, this sort of rectangular shape of the heel. So those are my main sections that I'm going to be looking for. I might also notice that it's kind of a square here. So you can see all these scribbles that I'm starting to put down. That's all going to be on my paper. I'm drawing super, super light at this point because I want to be able to erase all these sketchy lines later. But this is how I generally start to plan things out. I'm looking for those basic shapes. How am I going to fit those into the block that I made for myself on my paper? All of those things. So that if we jump into the left side, or the left shoe, again, I'm going to look for those basic shapes. So I've got another oval here at the toe. I've got another square here at the top. And then notice that I have a bit of a triangle that happens up here. So that's how all of my things are going to fit together. So once I've got these really sketchy lines down, that's when I'm going to go in and start to smooth them out. And I'll start erasing some of the other lines that I was working with, and things like that. So once I've got a solid foundational drawing down with just the basic structure of my objects, then I'm going to go in and start to do my detail work. But only after you've really gone through and gotten a solid foundation to start with. Don't jump into the details right away, because then if something in the foundation is off, your whole thing comes crumbling down and you have to erase all that hard work you did in detail. So think if you were building a house and you just jumped in and started decorating right away, but then you realized, well, wait, the floor isn't level and the ceiling's crumbling. Well, now all these nice things that I just brought in have to be taken out, done all over again because my foundation's not set. So really make sure that you have a good, solid, basic drawing before you start doing any shading, any detail work, anything like that. So once I start going into my detail work, after I've got that basic drawing down, I'm going to start looking for more of these basic lines that we had before. So I'm going to be looking at a lot of the stitching that I've got going on. So I'm going to start to add some of these sketchy lines again. Looking for, okay, I've got stitching here and here. If you're using a shoe that has, especially in sports shoes and sneakers with the Nike swoosh or the Adidas triangle, those would be things that you would also be looking for. Here it's more of a decorative shoe, so I'm looking for more of those fancier things, not so much as the graphic details. So here I'm following the sketches of the stitching. Do that on both shoes. And then once I've got these sketches down, I'm going to do the exact same thing as I did before. And I'm going to start cleaning these lines up again and putting in more solid, correct lines to make sure everything's to my satisfaction. So one other thing for our purposes here is that we're doing a surrealist drawing. So we're transforming either the area around our shoes, we're transforming the shoes and their purpose, or maybe what the shoes are made out of. So obviously if you're changing little things, keep that in mind. But most importantly, that you need to remember, even if you are changing the shoe and its function or its material, your light sources are still going to be the same. So no matter what, that's always going to remain the same. So I'm looking and I've got my highlights over here, got my midtones starting, I've got shadows, I've got a bit of a reflected light here, and then obviously my cast shadow that I'm looking for. So that's always going to remain the same no matter what I turn my shoe into. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully this was helpful in getting you started and set up, and best of luck to you. You can do it.